Alright guys, in today's video it's pretty quick. We're working on a 2004 Chevrolet Cavalier that has failed state inspection because this muffler strap has given out at some point. This strap kind of wraps around the muffler, and then if we look up on top, it has like a tongue that goes into insulator on this muffler insulator bracket. And then if we reposition the camera over onto the driver's side, we'll see that it's all held together by a special 13mm long bolt. Alright, so here's the bolt that holds this contraption together. These rust out even in a southern state. We're going to start off with some penetrating oil just to make it a little bit easier to get this bolt extracted from the captive nut that's part of the strap. Alright, we just let that set up for about 10 minutes. Now we're going to see if we can get the torque going here, and that's going to be hard because this strap is broken. In fact, I don't even know, we might not be able to get it off on the vehicle. We may have to pull this assembly off and get it off in the vise. We're going to need this strap for the new one. But let me see if I can just pull this out for now. So I don't know if you guys can see. I'll reposition this camera. We're just going to take this U-shaped tongue out of the rubber insulator that it's held in up here. Come on! Just kind of wiggle it out. Alright. As the only parts involved here, we need to salvage this bolt for the new one. Then you've got this rubber insulator up here. This guy's seen better days and should probably be replaced. The part number for what we'll need should be stamped right onto the bottom here. At least on this one. It's going to be upside down for you guys, but it's a 22590-863 is what it looks like. Let's go see if we can get a part for this, and let's go put this in the vise and extract this special bolt so we don't have to order one of those. Alright, here's our replacement strap, 2259-0866. Yeah, 2259-0866. And then also stamped into the strap itself, 2259-0866. The tongue is painted. The strap itself is bare steel. What we'll do to help this along is we'll put a little bit of penetrating oil on the threads, and on the tongue we'll put a little bit of silicone spray to help it go back inside the insulator. This is our special bolt. So if this is missing on yours or too corroded to reuse, I'll put a link to this in the description to this bolt, this strap, as well as the rubber insulator at the top. Alright, so let's get this guy back on. Alright, so we're just going to slide it around the muffler and then slide it down. Alright, before we slide the tongue of this bracket on, I am going to replace this mount here, because if we kind of zoom in here, you can see now that we got the other one off, it's really bad. This is cracked up here, and this bottom piece is it's like it's not even really hanging on, so this has to be swapped out. There's a 13 millimeter here, and there's another one that I can't show you right in the back. We're going to pull those two 13s off. That's all it takes to remove this assembly. The metal bracket and the rubber insulator are all one piece. We're coming in from behind the rear wheel, the tire, with a long enough extension. And we're also just making sure that these are reusable fasteners. Sometimes these things can rust out pretty badly. And then to get this going, before we use a ratchet, we're using a breaker bar to give us some more leverage initially. Well, that's what can happen with these rusty fasteners. Now it's a bigger job. The bolt broke off. If we zoom in there, we can see due to corrosion, it broke off inside the frame. Now something like this, I'm just going to drill it out for this type of fastener. That'll be the easiest thing to do. All right, so the part we're going to replace this with is a GM2263-8273. And that'll be this same assembly. It mounts just like this, like we saw, right? So it tells you right on there, this is the top. So this is that rear bolt that you couldn't see before, and this is the one you can't see. And then the tongue of the muffler bracket's going to fit right in there. All right, before we actually mount this guy, to make it easier for that tongue to go in, we're going to spray the inside of this with some spray silicone. That'll just temporarily make that tongue easier to slide in for the muffler bracket itself. All right, let's take a look at the service manual and see what the torque for this guy is when we get it on here, right? So here's our strap, here's our bracket with our insulator. There's the two bolts that we got to get in there. They're self-tapping and they go in at 12 foot-pounds. All right, guys, what we're going to do to replace this, because we're not going to use the original one because of the corrosion around the neck. This one's going to end up snapping at some point too. We're going to replace that with a couple of GM 1150 9189 screws, and these are screws, not bolts. And we can see they're very coarsely threaded. In metric, they would be an M7.9 by 2.12. So it's not an actual metric standard fastener. This would be an SAE type that they just relabeled. You might also see it sold as an M8 by 2.12. And what it is a self-tapping screw. So we don't have to worry about extracting the broken off piece. We just got to drill it out to the appropriate size hole. And then these guys, at least the one where we have to replace the broken one, are just self-tap new threads. Let's just go ahead and get that old one out so we can get this bracket back on. All right, guys, I'm just going to show you the tools I ended up using to get past this problem. This video is not about these types of problems. Since this was unexpected, I just decided to give a little bit more time on how to get past it. So what I did is I took my Dremel tool with a 90-degree attachment. I put on a grinding bit, a conical grinding bit, and I made sure that it get a nice cone in the center to help with centering the drill bits. And then I used one of these center punches as a double insurance that we're going to start dead center of the broken bolt hole. And then the next thing I did is I started with a 4 millimeter bit, walked up to a 5.5 millimeter bit, and then up to a 6 millimeter bit, and then ended with a 6.5 millimeter bit. And I just used a small Milwaukee drill driver set on the I accidentally moved it right there. Set on the drill setting, of course. Now let me go underneath and show you why this type of bit was selected. So we're going to come around the camera from the back side now. Alright, so let me get this plastic bag that I taped on the muffler to catch all of our metal shavings while we drilled this out of the way. You'll end up having, like these pieces just flying all over the place, so make sure that you have got eye protection on when you do this. Alright, so why did we pick 6.5 millimeter, or if you're using standard bits, it would be 17/64. Well, if we take a look at the hole for the one that came out, that is the largest bit that can just nice and snugly fit in the original hole. And so when we drilled this guy out, we wanted that to be the same story. It's a little bit rougher there just because it's not worn like this one, but that would be the largest you would go, 17/64 or 6.5 millimeters. At this point, just like when we were drilling this out, and by the way, these type of bits that I were using are cobalt bits from Milwaukee, quad edge tips they're called. What we used on those was some cutting fluid. This is just some old Craftsman cutting fluid. You could use any kind of cutting fluid, and we're going to use that when we put the replacement bolt in here so that it can cut its new threads. And that's what we're going to do right now. So we're going to go get the bracket that we showed earlier. We'll get the rear bolt going because it's already got threads that are cut. And then we're going to put some cutting fluid on this new screw and grab our 13 millimeter and work this guy into the hole we just drilled so we can get back on track with this repair. Let me see if I can get in with this. I might have to get in there with a wobble. Let's see. And then after we cut the threads, we'll torque it down to the 12 foot-pounds indicated in the service manual. You can see this type of screw just goes right through like a tap. Get this back on there so the guy's nice and flush. Let's see if we got a little bit more on this guy. Alright, now I'm going to switch to a torque wrench. 12 foot-pounds. Not a whole lot of room to swing here between the brake drum and the rear fender. There's 12 on that one. This particular torque wrench doesn't always make a click, 'cause sometimes you just have to feel for the detent. All right, now we are done. Crisis averted. This guy's all ready, so let's go in the back and finish up getting the strap and the tongue back inside this insulator. All right, so now we're going to raise the muffler up, and with our silicone on the tongue and on the insulator, we can push this guy into the new bracket. All right. Now we got to get it lined up in a certain way on the bottom, and I'll give you another view of that so that you know you've got the strap where it's supposed to be sitting. And we'll start threading our bolt. We'll start by hand first, make sure it's not cross-threaded. As soon as we see threads coming up the top of the nut, then we know we're good. Now I'm just going to see if I've got the placement where I want it. If you look at the bottom of the muffler here, at least on a factory original GM muffler, you'll see there are these little nubs. 4 here and 4 here. This strap is supposed to sit in the middle of those nubs, just like that. So that's the position we're going to tighten this guy down in. So let me get the electric ratchet and we'll run up the slack. All right, guys, I know I said torque wrench in that previous clip. I misspoke. I'm just using a regular ratchet wrench. This particular fastener does not have a specific torque value in the service manual, so you just want to get it snug. We just want to have this piece flush with this piece. And once we're done with that and it gets tight, we're done. If you put too much torque on it, you'll end up bending this piece out and it could slip past here, and then you'll run out of threads in here and you'll be doing it all over again. All right, guys, here's another view of the muffler nubs. There's a pair here, a pair here, a pair here, and a pair here. They're important to keep the strap from moving forward and backward when you get it tightened down so that the muffler stays exactly where it's supposed to in this position. Nice and snug, sitting in the middle of the nubs. Everything's where we would want it to be, and this job is done. This vehicle is going to pass state inspection now. All right, guys, that's it. She's all in place. I figured I'd show you a clip of everything together. You can kind of see we've already taken a few test drives. So once you start test driving stuff, the metal is going to quickly discolor. But that's how your bracket should be positioned. That's how the tongue should be positioned in the insulator. And that's how the insulator should be sitting on the bracket. Everything nice and intact. You won't get any noise that way, and it'll be sure to hold up the muffler. If you got any questions or comments about what we did today, go ahead and leave them below, and I'll try to help. If this helped you get the job done yourself and save yourself some money and getting it done with OEM parts, I'd appreciate you paying it forward by hitting that like button. And as always, thanks for watching.